Greetings. As you already know, each grade 12 class has to make a capstone project to show their independent learning skills and how their interests can connect to a career. For my capstone project, I wanted to write a short fiction book in a fantasy setting. It would be set in the Dungeons & Dragons universe, a diverse setting designed to inspire creativity. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game that focuses on the characters the players create. I wanted my book to focus on 3 different characters that I made and follow them throughout their adventures. Unfortunately, as I worked, I realized how much work I had set up for myself, so I wrote 2 short stories with the same characters instead.
Creative writing is much different than other types of writing. There is basically no research and you just write what your heart wants. When I wrote these stories, I tried to put myself in the shoes of the character that was narrating the scene. When I do this, it helps me feel more connected to the character and allows my writing to flow better. When I was writing my first story, Ice, Cold, and Snow in Uncomfortable Places, I got stuck when I was writing the final sequence. I felt like the twist I came up with was predictable, so I stepped away for a few days to think about it. When I came back, everything seemed to click, and I am much happier with the result.
Characters are what drive a story, so I wanted to have a solid idea of who I was working with before starting my book. Each of my characters would have a different personality, and I wanted to show that in my writing. My first character, Fiery of the Woods Eternal, is a teenage human who was kidnapped by fairies when he was a baby. As he grew up in the Feywild, he was taught that he would be the person to bring an end to the destruction that a nearby human settlement was causing to the environment. However, the humans cleaned up their act and Fiery was never needed. After learning that he had no more purpose in the Feywild, and reeling from the knowledge that he was kidnapped as a baby, Fiery left home with his pet baby dragon and decided to wander the material plane in search of his real parents. My second character, Celebrimbor Strongback, is an adventuresome dwarf who was banished from his church. His church worships the god Kalemvor, the god of death, and is dedicated to exploring ancient ruins and uncovering the secrets of the dead. Celebrimbor doesn't fear death, and he was banished from his church after nearly killing his exploration party with a trap he triggered. My idea for this character was to make him similar to Indiana Jones, with a touch more dwarven stubbornness. My last character, Lyrane Miracle, used to be a human before he was cursed to wander the lands as a lizard beast. Before he was transformed, he was a happy-go-lucky fisherman who simply fished at the wrong spring. After being cursed, he realizes he doesn't need to be human to be happy and tries to be his old self whenever he isn't reminded of what he became. I encourage you to read all of these backstories for yourself to get a better idea of what made these characters who they are. As I said before, after realizing how much work making an entire book would be, I instead made 2 short stories with the same characters. Each of the stories is in a different location, and they represent the characters at different points in their journeys together. I believe that I held true to my original designs for my characters, and I am very pleased with how the stories turned out. When I was writing their dialogue, I also tried to make them sound different. Fiery is teenaged and selfish, so he speaks in shorter sentences and uses I a lot. Celebrimbor is the oldest and most educated of the group, so he speaks in longer sentences and uses larger words. Lyrane is the nicest of my characters, so he tries to speak in a diplomatic way without upsetting Fiery or Celebrimbor. Additionally, each of my stories is told in the first-person point of view, as I believe that helps to immerse the reader in what a character is thinking. My first story, Ice, Cold, and Snow in Uncomfortable Places, is told by Fiery and is set in an Arctic environment. It starts out with the characters in a blizzard, and Fiery almost immediately begins to complain. I try to show his personality with the way he talks and acts, and especially how he annoys Callie, his nickname for Celebrimbor. The story ends with a surprising twist, and I am proud of how the final sequence turned out. My second story, Recollections of a More Peaceful Time, is told by Celebrimbor and is set in a campsite the night before their final battle. It is set several years after Ice, Cold, and Snow in Uncomfortable Places, and I wanted to show how the characters have grown together in their time adventuring. I start out with a recollection of how Celebrimbor met Fiery to show how they were against each other from the start. The story continues with Celebrimbor and Fiery talking about their current situation, ending with the appearance of a mysterious force that emboldens them to have faith. Even though I did not achieve all that I set out to do, I am still very proud of myself for making 2 excellent stories and 3 character dossiers. Over the course of this project, I learned how to utilize small ideas and how to be more creative. I also learned how characters in a story can shape the final project. I would like to thank my mentor, Miss Reeve, for providing feedback on my work. I would also like to thank Miss Connie for teaching us over the course of this class. Thank you for watching.